So I'm here at a corner of King and Princess, and this part of town is dotted with cultural history. Starting as early as 1895, this part of Lower Princess was known as Little Jerusalem. Around the turn of the century, in the 20th century, the city of Kingston faced the problem of too many new Chinese immigrants and their new businesses. So in 1909, they passed a bylaw saying that all laundrymen had to pay an annual sum of $50 to have a license to operate their business. So this store has quite an interesting and long history. It was first built in 1817 and it was first called Moore's Coffee House. It had a beautiful inner courtyard. Stones is a project in collaboration with CFRC Radio and the Queen's Archives to trace the often unheard social history of Kingston. So we have 7 different cultural communities and we just trace their history. So you can also see the remnants of Francophone history here. You see that building behind me? It's the Hochschloss building. It was named after its owner and builder, François-Xavier Hochschloss. So you see the FXR on the sign over there. He came from Clergy in 1790s and he built a building in 1808. And it's actually the oldest limestone building in Kingston. There were a lot of researchers, a lot of time that were put into this project. So on the website, you have 7 different cultural community groups. We have the Francophone, the Indigenous, the Chinese, the Black, the Penitentiary, the Jewish, and the Gay and Lesbian. And on the website, you actually have interactive maps. You can click, for example, you can click Black History and they'll show you dots on a Google map where you can see the different sites where you can explore the different cultural histories. If you scroll down on the page, you can actually see a route. So we created a route for you if you want to take a walking tour by yourself, and you can also download the audio. I am here now at Princess and Clergy. This part of town is also dotted with cultural history. So first, we have Turk's Used Furniture Store. Oh wait, it closed a couple of years ago, but it was open for about 100 years. It first opened in 1902 by a name named Jacob Turk. And he came here from Russia in 1889 through New York City. And here on the northeast of Princess and Clergy, we have the Geneva Crepe House. And before, a man named George Minks lived here. He was the best known and the most successful Black man in Kingston. You know the Grand Hall at Queen's University? So during World War II, it was used as an emergency hospital to treat patients, right? So people who were injured. And there were some Black medical doctors, people who were Black. And then the patients didn't feel comfortable being treated by Black people. So do you know what the university did to them? They expelled them. I was shocked when I read this story. It's on the Stones Kingston website. It's under the Grand Hall during World War II. If people hear about it now, they would be protesting, but back then it was normal. Self-employment was quite vital to the Jewish immigrants because they needed low capital investment. And before they started out their own businesses, they started out as peddlers. You see the A1's clothing store back there? In 1937, it was owned by Joseph and Berthe Geller. And then they started a bakery over here, and then it turned into a grocery store. The rationale of the project is to get people excited about the cultural history of Kingston, and that's why it's called Stones Kingston, because we felt that since Kingston's built on limestone, right? So there are a lot of limestone buildings. The cultural groups are kind of like stones that make up Kingston. So it's important to understand where we come from. It's also important to understand the often unheard voices, the alternative history, and just the minority groups that make up who we are today. And we also have gay and lesbian history here at the Irish Club. So in 1977, it was the opening night of King's Hotel. It was March 1st. And some members from the Queen's Homophile Association, they went into for the opening night to celebrate, and they danced in same-sex couples. Guess what? The owners kicked them out. He was rude. And just a week and a half later, on March 12, 1977, 25 to 30 people protested outside right here on the street, and it was known as the King's Lounge protest. Sometimes the culture groups don't feel comfortable enough to be in Kingston because they feel like they don't have enough awareness. People don't know enough about them, so they just gather in their own groups. And sometimes they're scared to reach out to other people. So it's important for everybody in Kingston to understand who lives here and when they came and what their stories were. Good afternoon. You're listening to CFRC 101.9 FM. I am Elaine Yuan, your host of Speaking Stones Kingston, your weekly walk of Kingston's social history. The radio show is called Speaking Stones Kingston, and I host it every single week. It's Monday on CFRC FM 101.9 FM, and it's 5:30 to 6. So I mainly just have interviews with community members. So for example, 2 weeks ago, I had an interview with the president of the Afro-Caribbean Association, and her name was Judith Brown. So we had that, and sometimes I also go to events. So for example, I went to the Train of Thought in Kingston and learned about Indigenous history. So it's just community events that tie into the Stones Kingston project. So on June 8th, 2001, the city of Kingston officially proclaimed the month of June as Aboriginal Peoples Month. It was to recognize the past, present, and future contributions made not only by the First Nations, but by the Métis and Inuits as well. I want to see more people be excited about history. I want to see more people taking the walking tours by themselves, because reading about it is one thing, but seeing the locations is something different, because you actually feel the history in front of you. You can actually imagine who was here before. And I really hope people they feel more accepting of other people. They learn more about people's history. So I really hope people become more open-minded through this Stones Kingston project.